Hi, I'm Asha. My sister and her crew dumped sizzling soup on my lap, center stage in the school cafeteria, then laughed like it was primetime TV. She leaned in and hissed, "Know your place." That burn, outside and in, sparked something I didn't know existed. 60 seconds later, the whole room went silent, and she realized the quiet kid was done being quiet. Tell me, have you ever been pushed so far you snapped in silence? Share below. I read every story. Stay with me, because what she never expected is exactly where our story begins. Lunch at Maple Valley High always smells like reheated pizza and floor wax. I usually sit in the corner beside the vending machines. Nothing glamorous, just a plastic seat that wobbles when I cross my legs. Today is no different, except that halfway through my turkey sandwich I hear my sister's laugh cut through the cafeteria noise like a dinner bell. Cressida owns whatever space she walks into. At 18, she's captain of everything that matters. Cheer, debate, image. I'm 16. Too quiet. Too ordinary. The kid teachers forget to mark present. She glides toward me with her trio of shadows. Brielle, Dana, and Kiki. Their ponytails bounce in unison, brand new white sneakers squeaking against the linoleum. I lower my gaze to the swirl of gray tabletop. Maybe they'll keep marching. No such luck. Well, look who crawled out of the library. Cressida's tone is sugary, but her eyes sweep me top to bottom, searching for flaws like a TSA agent. That sweatshirt again? Mom says you're impossible to shop for. Maybe try any color that isn't sadness. Brielle giggles. Dana snaps a photo. I hear the shutter click and Brielle whisper, caption, Walmart Wednesday. The words sting because they're true. Mom takes Cressida to the mall, hands me clearance leftovers. I push my tray forward, ready to bolt, but Cressida stops me with 2 fingers on my shoulder. Her nails are crimson, glossy, perfect. Asha, you never join the fun. She leans closer, perfume sharp as gardenias. You know what your problem is? You forget your place. Then comes the soup. It's chicken tortilla, bright orange, straight from the hot bar. She tips the bowl. Scalding liquid cascades over my lap, soaking jeans, searing skin. My breath snags in my throat. A collective gasp ripples through the room, followed, unbelievably, by laughter. Someone whistles. Someone else claps like this is halftime entertainment. I freeze. The soup feels alive, creeping under denim, burning, humiliating. My vision tunnels until I see nothing but Cressida's satisfied smile. A teacher trudges past, glances at the spill and mutters, "Let's keep it civil, ladies," before continuing to the faculty table. No intervention, no question. Heat and shame drive me upright. The bench screeches. Liquid drips onto my sneakers as I walk, steady, head high though my cheeks blaze. The crowd parts with reluctance, phones raised for better angles. I catch whispers. Drama magnet. She'll cry. Watch her run. The restroom door thuds behind me, muffling noise. I lock myself in the far stall, peel the soaked jeans away from my thighs, hiss at the sting. Tears threaten. I grip the metal divider until my knuckles blanch, willing myself not to give Cressida the satisfaction of my sobs. From my jacket pocket I pull the handkerchief. It's pale blue linen, edges frayed, letters stitched in silver by my grandfather before he passed. You are not invisible. He pressed it into my palm at his hospice bed and whispered, "Use it when the world forgets you exist." I dab moisture off my face, studying the words until they refocus into something stronger than pain. Outside the stall, the automatic faucet drones, fluorescent bulbs hum. Life keeps moving even when yours implodes. I dress again, jeans clammy, skin throbbing, but my spine feels straighter. Enough. No more folding myself just so others can stretch. At the mirror, I wipe soup flecks from my cheek, smooth hair already frizzing from steam, and take out my phone. The screen reflects a girl I barely recognize. Mascara smudged, jaw set, eyes clearer than they've been in years. With a swipe, I open the camera, switch to record, and speak softly. Day 1. Proof. My voice doesn't shake. I stop the clip, tuck the device into my sleeve. Walking out of the restroom, I don't head to class. I head to the back staircase where the Wi-Fi is strongest. Somewhere between the lockers and the exit door, I whisper to myself, if no one's going to protect me, maybe it's time I do it myself. I stayed in that back stairwell, pretending the gray concrete was a shield. The hallway buzzed with the last lunch bell, but I waited until footsteps thinned to echoes before moving. My jeans had cooled to an unpleasant cling, every step reminding me of Cressida's soup stunt. I slipped into the nearest restroom, chose the stall farthest from the door, and latched it. Sitting on the closed toilet lid, I unlocked my phone. The screen lit my knees a pale blue. My thumb hovered, then tapped the hidden folder labeled Thursday. Inside were weeks of hush-collected artifacts, voice memos of Cressida calling me dead space, photos of her friends blocking my locker, screenshots of group chat jokes about turning invisibility into a talent. I had never meant to use them. Gathering proof was just a way to convince myself it was real. The burn on my thighs pricked, as if urging me forward. I opened the YouTube app, created a new channel with no name, no face. I stitched 10 seconds of grainy hallway video to 5 seconds of cafeteria noise, layered captions over shoes and trays. Loser. Useless. Why are you even here? No faces, no full names, just the weight of words. I added a caption. What it feels like to be erased at home and mocked at school. Maybe someone else understands. A single inhale, a longer exhale, and my finger hit upload. The progress bar crawled. When it turned green, I powered the phone off and tucked it into my back pocket. Leaving the stall, I washed my hands, ignoring the mirror. Outside, Brielle leaned against the tiled wall. "Mom wants her dish back," she sneered, holding an empty soup bowl like a trophy. I walked past without a word. Silence, it turns out, unsettles bullies more than insults. World geography was my last class. I arrived before the bell, slid into a middle seat, and opened my notebook. Mr. Pollard droned about fjords, but my mind replayed my grandfather's voice from a summer afternoon at Lincoln Park. They might ignore you now, but you've got eyes, ears, and a mind. Use them. He'd handed me a disposable camera then, told me every picture was a piece of truth no one could steal. Halfway through the period, Dana leaned over and whispered, "Your stunt today? Pathetic." I traced the margin of my paper with my pencil, refusing to react. Dana's smile faltered. She faced forward. At dismissal, the sky had folded into late afternoon gold. I walked the 2 miles home because the bus smelled like sweat and sugar drinks. Mom's one-story rental sat on a quiet street lined with crabgrass and faded flags. As I turned the corner, Cressida's new convertible glinted in the driveway. Mom stood on the porch, arms spread in welcome for her star. She never saw me slip along the side of the house to the back door. Evening settled into its usual pattern. Cressida's laughter upstairs, the TV murmuring game shows, Mom shouting dinner reminders no one answered. I ate toast at the counter, then retreated to my room, a converted laundry space big enough for a twin bed and a metal desk. I turned my phone on. 46 views. 1 comment. "This feels too familiar. Thank you for posting." My pulse quickened. Not fear, not pride, just a spark of connection. I liked the comment, locked the screen, and slid the phone beneath my pillow. Sleep came in shards. Each time I drifted off, the cafeteria replayed. Orange liquid, roaring laughter, my own stillness. Around 3, I woke to find the handkerchief clenched in my fist. I tucked it under my pillow, determined to let tomorrow carry its own weight. Sunlight crept through thin curtains before my alarm. I checked my phone out of habit. 17,000 views. Notifications poured in faster than I could swipe them away. Likes, shares, strangers typing paragraphs about daughters, sons, siblings pushed aside. My throat tightened. Then a different vibration, Cressida's ringtone, loud knocks pairing with it. "Open up, now." Her voice was lower than usual, almost panicked. Cressida's fist rattled the thin door again, louder than my alarm. I swung my legs over the side of the bed, the floorboards protesting the early hour, and clicked the lock. She pushed past me, cheeks drained of their usual blush, phone gripped like a weapon. "What did you post?" Her voice cracked. Coach already called, Mom's panicking. Take it down. I noticed the numbers on her screen, 17,000 and climbing. I never used your name, I answered, calmer than I felt. I blurred every face. That doesn't matter, she hissed. People recognize my laugh. Mom's voice floated up the stairs. Girls, kitchen, now. We descended together, her storm steps outpacing my steady ones. Mom waited by the fridge, bathrobe cinched tight, phone shaking in her hand. You're embarrassing this family, Asha. Delete it before your grandmother sees. The video isn't about family pride, I said, meeting her eyes. It's about what happened in plain sight, Cressida scoffed. It was a joke. Everyone jokes. Soup burns aren't punchlines. I turned toward the back door, needing air more than permission. Walk away just like always, she called after me. Play the victim, get your sympathy points. I paused at the threshold but refused to offer her more words. The morning sky was still soft gray. I followed the sidewalk past dew-flecked lawns, replaying her anger in my head. At Maple Valley High, the first bell hadn't rung, yet clusters of students already hovered near the entrance, faces glued to screens. Conversations fell when they spotted me. A hush, then murmurs I pretended not to hear. Inside, lockers slammed, sneakers squeaked, whispers traveled faster than gossip notes. Near homeroom, a freshman I barely knew pressed a neon sticky note into my palm before darting away. I saw everything. I'm sorry. 2 simple sentences leaving a bigger bruise than the soup. Second period dragged through quadratic equations. Third blurred with the hum of fluorescent lights. Between classes, Brielle brushed past, muttering, "Hope the attention's worth it." I kept my shoulders square, recalling a different hallway years earlier. 7th grade science fair. My volcano model erupted perfectly, judges handing me the regional ribbon. Mom and Dad never arrived. They were across town, front row at Cressida's dance recital, recording every pirouette. I'd accepted my plaque alone while strangers clapped politely. The memory still tasted like cold metal. By lunch, the view count had doubled. My phone buzzed nonstop in my pocket. I refused to check until the final bell. Walking home, I counted cracks in the sidewalk, each step steady, deliberate. Cressida's convertible sped by, bass thumping, Mom laughing in the passenger seat. Neither glanced my way. I reached the house as shadows stretched across the yard. Grandma Ruth was pruning roses along the fence. She offered a quiet nod. No questions. Inside, I reheated leftover spaghetti, ate standing at the stove, then retreated to my room where I finally opened the app. 86,000 views. Comments scrolled faster than I could read. You're braver than most adults. We need to protect girls like her. A knot of fear loosened, replaced by something sharper. Possibility. An email notification slid across the top of the screen. Principal Harrow requesting a meeting to discuss online activity. Formal, neutral, a sentence that might mean suspension or support. My stomach flipped. Still, a spark urged me forward. I reopened my hidden folder, selected the cafeteria audio clip I'd captured last Friday. Cressida's voice, crystal clear over clattering trays. Know your place. I layered subtitles, softened background noise, trimmed the edges. The edit ran 8 seconds but carried years of dismissal. Before uploading, I added footage of my jeans soaking, the handkerchief's stitched promise glinting under restroom lights. I titled the new video, Place. No tags, no description. Let the sound speak. The file processed, the icon turned public, and I exhaled. 3 minutes later, a push alert flashed. Your video was shared by Youth Resound 2.3M subscribers. My heart slammed against my ribs. The channel was famous for anti-bullying stories, often spotlighted on morning shows. Somewhere downstairs, the landline rang. Mom's anxious murmur followed. Upstairs, Cressida's bedroom door slammed. I sat on the edge of my bed, phone vibrating like a heartbeat in my hands, realizing silence had traveled further than any scream I could have managed. The notification hung on my screen like a flare in the dark. Youth Resound had reposted my clip. I set the phone on my nightstand, afraid to breathe, and tried to sleep. The numbers kept spinning in my mind. By dawn, the view counter sat just under 400,000, A local news site embedded the video in their morning roundup. A national blogger tweeted, "Silence doesn't equal safety." I watched from my bed, blanket pulled to my chin, equal parts exhilarated and scared stiff. A buzz lit the screen again. Ms. Delaney, my 8th grade English teacher. I remember that day in the cafeteria. "I'm proud you spoke up." My throat tightened. She'd once handed me a blank poetry journal saying, "Fill it before the world writes you out." School felt altered, an atmosphere of brittle glass. Hallways that had echoed with insults fell quiet as I passed. Some students looked away, guilt painting their cheeks. Others offered tight nods, a silent promise they would not laugh this time. Cressida's entourage had ruptured overnight. I spotted Jenny alone near the trophy case, arms wrapped around her books. She stepped into my path. "I didn't think she'd go that far," she whispered, eyes glossy. "I'm sorry." Before I could answer, she slipped away, hugging the lockers like they might forgive her. Third period announcements crackled through the speakers. Effective immediately, Cressida Monroe is suspended from student council pending investigation. Gasps fluttered. A hush followed. At lunch, I overheard Brielle complaining Cressida's boyfriend had dumped her to avoid the bad press. Consequences had finally found their way through the cafeteria doors. That evening, Mom called a family meeting at the dining table. Dad sat stiff, fingers steepled, jaw working. Mom slapped a printout of comments onto the placemat. "Congratulations, Asha. You've divided this household and half of Maple Valley." "I reported what happened," I replied. She pointed at Cressida, who stared at her lap. "Your sister's scholarship committee reached out, worried about her character. Do you understand what you've done?" "I understand she set me on fire," I said, voice level. "And you watched it burn." Dad exhaled, but no words came. Mom scoffed. "Drama. Always drama." I rose, chair legs scraping, and left the room. No one followed. Upstairs, I pulled out the poetry journal Ms. Delaney once gave me. Instead of verse, I began an essay titled "Smallest Chair at the Biggest Table." I wrote about invisible children, about praise that echoes down one hallway and dies in another, about the sound soup makes when dignity splashes onto tile. By midnight, my fingers ached, but the essay felt like breathing fresh air after years underground. I saved it, stripped my name from the footer, and uploaded it to the National Voices Teen Contest page. Submit? Gone. Friday morning, the guidance counselor called me in. I braced for another reprimand. Instead, Mrs. Patel folded her hands. "I'm sorry we didn't notice earlier," she said. "Kids should feel safe here. What do you need from us?" The sincerity in her tone loosened something locked inside me. We agreed on a plan. Teachers would monitor high-risk spots, anonymous reporting would become easier, and I could step out of class if anxiety spiked. Tiny measures, but seeds all the same. Dusk settled pink and gold when I stepped off the bus. Grandma Ruth waved from her porch rocker. Inside, the kitchen smelled of cinnamon toast. On the counter waited a brown parcel addressed in looping script. My name? No return address. I slid a butter knife under the tape. Inside rested a vintage Super 8 camera and a single page. Use your voice. You've got something to say. No signature, but I recognized the careful pen strokes. Theo, Grandpa's friend, the man who once taught me how to load film and chase truth with steady hands. I cradled the camera, its weight both foreign and familiar, then glanced at the clock. Nearly 7. Evening news would air soon, and there was talk of a segment on student cyber courage. I wondered if my clip might play. Part of me hoped yes, another part feared what more exposure might invite. Still, when I raised the Super 8 to eye level, peered through its cloudy viewfinder, and pressed the shutter, a soft whir began. Steady, determined. The lens faced the quiet living room. Mom rinsing dishes in the sink, Dad staring at the floor, Cressida scrolling through a cracked screen. For the first time, I chose the frame. A sliver of moonlight striped my quilt as I set the camera on my desk. The heft of it, solid metal, tiny scratches on the lens cap, tugged me backward in time before I even unfolded the note a second time. Theo's handwriting hadn't changed. Tall, deliberate letters, like he expected history to lean in for clarity. When I was 10, summer days at Theo's studio smelled of fixer fluid and dust. He'd perch behind his tripod, call me his assistant, and let me frame neighborhood scenes through the viewfinder. He insisted silence was a language. Wait long enough, and truth stepped into focus. He was the first grown-up who studied my photos rather than correcting my posture. Remembering that, I lifted the Super 8 and peered through its glass. In the dark, the hallway light pooled at my half-closed door where Mom's voice drifted, sharp with worry. I pressed the shutter. The camera hummed. Saturday morning arrived wrapped in gray drizzle. I walked to the corner store for milk and returned filming small vignettes. A neighbor scraping frost from a windshield, a stray cat dodging puddles, classmates across the street pretending not to notice me. Their downcast eyes said more than any apology. Back home, I threaded new film, then stepped onto the porch. Cressida shuffled to the mailbox, alone, hood pulled low. I captured her silhouette against the rain without zoom, giving the frame a softness she hadn't shown me in years. "Mid-afternoon," Theo called. His voice, older yet steady, poured through the speaker like warm tea. "Good. You got it," he said before I could greet him. "Remember, Asha, no permission needed to tell the truth." "I'm scared what that truth will cost," I admitted. "It already cost you your silence," he answered. "That's enough tribute." By dinner, Mom's patience thinned. She cornered me near the pantry. "You're enjoying this attention. Your sister can't sleep, your grandmother's church is talking, and you're filming?" I kept my tone even. "People finally hear what I swallowed for years." She threw up her hands. "You're not the only one hurting." "So, you never looked closely enough to see mine," I replied, stepping sideways before she could answer. Night settled, the house quieted. I transferred footage to my laptop, layering clips over passages from my journal, entries about cafeteria walls closing in, about birthdays spent holding the camera for Cressida's celebrations. My voiceover came out steady, each word stitched to an image of distance. Classmates' averted faces, empty cafeteria benches, Cressida's retreating figure. I titled the short film Echoes Between Bells and saved it. Not ready for another upload. Yet. Before shutting down, I checked the school forum. An anonymous post glowed at the top. I was there. I laughed. I shouldn't have. I'm sorry. The admission sent a strange heat through my chest, hurt and healing wrestling for space. At 11, my phone buzzed with Cressida's number. I let it ring to voicemail. Her recorded message cracked mid-sentence. "We need to talk. Not like before." She didn't sound angry. She sounded small. I saved it, unsure what the next step should be. I closed the laptop, ready to drift into half-sleep, when another notification pinged. Subject line in bold, finalist, National Essay Contest. My breath caught. The body read, "Your entry moved us deeply. Please confirm your attendance at the award ceremony in Baltimore next month." I stared until the screen dimmed, pulse thudding loud enough to drown the rain on the roof. For years, my words lived only in notebooks. Now they might echo in a room full of strangers. Hope flickered, fragile, luminous, somewhere between fear and pride. I clicked reply, fingers hovering, then typed, "Thank you, I will be there." I reread the invitation until the words blurred. A finalist. Baltimore. My stomach flipped between disbelief and a quiet thrill. Deserve. Did I? The question looped until I carried the email downstairs and showed Grandma Ruth, who was folding laundry at the kitchen table. She adjusted her glasses, scanned the screen, and smiled with soft certainty. "Don't dim your light just because others looked away," she said, smoothing one of Dad's work shirts. "Pack something proud." Monday morning I asked the secretary for a personal day. Mrs. Patel, my counselor, overheard and motioned me into her office. Sunlight pooled across her desk. "You're stronger than anyone here realizes," she said, signing the excuse slip before I asked. "Bring back pictures." Her confidence steadied my knees. In the hallway, Cressida brushed by, shoulder catching mine. "Are you really going to act like you're better than us now?" Her voice held more hurt than acid. "No," I answered, adjusting my backpack strap. "Just different." I kept walking, letting the words settle where they fell. Thursday before dawn, Grandma lent me her black blazer, the one she wore when Grandpa's photos hung in the county museum. At the station, she pressed a granola bar into my hand and kissed my cheek. The train rattled south, fields sliding into row houses, my speech vibrating in my lap. I whispered it under my breath, palms damp. The University Hall in Baltimore looked like something out of an old film. Ivy clinging to stone arches, stained glass windows throwing fractured color on polished floors, finalists milled in tailored suits, portfolios tucked under confident arms. I took a seat near the aisle, heart hammering. When the announcer called my name as grand prize winner, time hiccuped. Applause filled the chamber, yet felt far away, like rain on a roof I'd only dreamt of. I walked to the lectern, clutching the edges to steady my hands. My essay is called The Lunch Table, I began, voice cracking, then leveling out. It traces the small cuts, jokes, slights, silences that bleed into something bigger. We all carry stories. Mine just happened to spill in a cafeteria. Gasps, followed by applause, washed over me, not thunderous but warm, the way a fireplace fills a quiet room. After handshakes and photographs, a journalism student asked for a selfie for kids who need proof courage exists. I smiled, shaky, real. Back on the late train, city lights blinking past, I scrolled a clip of my speech already circulating online. Comments stacked, she speaks for every silent kid, wish I had her spine at 16. Pride rose, tinged with the knowledge that tomorrow backlash might follow. The car rocked gently. I let my head rest against the window. Home after midnight, I dropped my bag in the hall and tiptoed to my room. A single text from Cressida. Can we meet? Not like before. I locked the screen, unsure how or if to answer. Sunlight barely crested the next morning when the doorbell rang. Dad shuffled down the hallway. I pulled on sweatpants and followed. On the porch sat a thick envelope emblazoned with the school's crest. Mom's fingers trembled as she slid it open. She read silently, shoulders lowering inch by inch, then passed it to me without a word. Inside lay a formal apology signed by Principal Harrow and the district superintendent, an acknowledgement of failure to protect, a commitment to policy overhaul, an invitation for me to join a new student safety board. A check for therapy expenses was clipped to the letter. I traced the embossed seal, heart beating in amazement. Behind me, Mom dabbed her eyes. Dad placed a tentative hand on my shoulder, squeezing once before stepping aside. Rain began tapping the porch rail, gentle, rhythmic, like a soft knock asking permission to enter. The official seal glinted under the porch light as I slid the apology from its envelope. Principal Harrow's signature looped beneath careful language, acknowledging systemic oversight and failure to ensure a safe environment. A stapled packet followed, freeze-frame stills from the cafeteria's security camera. Someone had requested and leaked the full footage. Cressida upending the soup, my face rigid with shock, students laughing in a blur of jerseys and backpacks, a QR code linked to a cloud copy. Whoever sent it wanted transparency and permanent ink. By lunchtime the next day, that video eclipsed 1 million views. Local stations aired side-by-side clips of the incident and my Baltimore speech, billing it Courage in Quiet Places. Walking into school felt like stepping onto a theater stage where every seat was taken. Teachers nodded without meeting my eyes. Classmates parted politely, guilt heavy in the air. An announcement crackled through the PA. Student council will remain inactive pending investigation. Translation: Cressida was out. I didn't feel triumphant, only lighter, as if a stone I'd balanced for years finally rolled off. Second period, Jenny lingered by my locker. I want to testify if there's a hearing, she whispered, cheeks blotched pink. I thanked her, meaning it, and watched her hurry away as if courage might evaporate. That afternoon, a district email invited me to address the school board on bullying prevention. My pulse thudded. Grandma Ruth rubbed my shoulders while hemming the sleeves of my borrowed blazer. "You don't have to scream to be heard," she murmured. "Just stand." The boardroom smelled of coffee and old carpet. Parents, reporters, and 3 stern trustees filled the folding chairs. When my name was called, knees trembling, I unfolded the apology letter and read, voice cracking once. "If my silence made you comfortable, I'm sorry to break it." I described laughter that pricks like nettles, teachers who walk by, the way humiliation echoes long after the bell. A trustee cleared her throat, eyes glassy. Afterward, students I'd never spoken to reached out online. One message from a sophomore named Marcus read, "They dunked my head in a toilet last year. No one listened. Thank you." I closed the app and cried quietly into Grandma's quilt. Cressida's suspension email landed that evening. Mom paced the kitchen, muttering about reputations. I felt hollow, not for her consequences, but for the years we'd wasted playing roles we never chose. Later, I sat on the back steps, October air smelling of damp leaves. Dad's voicemail arrived, words hesitant. "I should have shielded you better. I'm learning." His apology, unfinished, sounded earnest enough to sting. A sudden memory surfaced, Cressida and me at 8 and 10, barefoot in the yard, sticky with popsicle juice, plotting imaginary road trips to California. That picture hurt more than any insult, the proof we'd once believed in each other before jealousy moved in. Monday between classes, I hunted down Nurse Patel, the first adult who'd offered me paper towels and silence instead of scolding. She listened as I thanked her. She smiled, eyes kind. "You walked back into that cafeteria the next day with nothing but dignity," she said. That unnerved them more than any shove. Friday's assembly arrived faster than I could rehearse my heart. The gym buzzed, bleachers packed, cell phones poised. I intended to sit with the juniors, anonymous in the crowd. Halfway through announcements, the principal waved me forward. My stomach dropped. A microphone waited at center court. Over a hush, I descended the bleacher steps. As I reached the floor, I sensed movement to my right. Cressida stood at the aisle end, arms crossed, face unreadable, eyes locked on mine. For a heartbeat, the world narrowed to 2 sisters and a microphone no one expected me to take. The principal's gesture felt slow motion, the microphone gleaming like a challenge in his outstretched hand. I wiped my palms against Grandma's black blazer, still faintly lavender-scented, then wrapped my fingers around the cool metal. The gym's chatter drained into expectant silence. Even the twirl of a cheer pennant stilled. From the floor I could see every face, teachers shifting, freshmen craning, local reporters near the exit with notebooks poised. In the 3rd row, Grandma lifted her chin in quiet solidarity. 2 bleachers higher, Cressida stood rigid, arms folded, eyes round with something that wasn't anger so much as alarm. I drew a breath that tasted of varnished wood and old popcorn. "I don't want revenge," I began, voice small but steady through the speakers. "I want accountability." The sound echoed off cinderblock walls, surprising me with its firmness. I talked about cafeterias that double as coliseums, about jokes that scald harder than soup, about how easy it is to overlook the kid who doesn't raise her hand. I didn't mention names, I didn't need to. My fingers, gripping the mic, still bore faint orange stains, a ghost of tortilla broth that detergent hadn't erased. I held them up. "These marks? They'll fade," I said. "But the silence that let them happen, that lingers unless we break it." A hush deeper than any pep rally lull settled. Somewhere in the crowd a phone chimed and was quickly muted. When I met Cressida's gaze, her mouth trembled. She turned and threaded sideways through startled classmates, vanishing toward the doors. I swallowed the urge to call after her. My message wasn't a net tossed at one person. It was a light aimed at shadows. "She was not the only one who hurt me," I continued. "Indifference did too. Hall monitors who glanced away. Friends who filmed but never asked if I was burning." A murmur rippled. Recognition, maybe shame. "You taught me to be invisible. I refuse to disappear." I lowered the microphone. For a stretch of heartbeats, nothing moved. Then a single clap, "Grandma," followed by another and another, building into a roar that washed across the bleachers. Teachers bowed their heads, Coach Ramirez wiped his glasses. I felt taller than the championship banners overhead. Afterwards, as the crowd drifted out, a custodian I barely knew pressed a folded sheet into my palm. In tidy pencil script, "You helped more than you'll ever know. A student. No name, only gratitude." I tucked it inside my journal. By seventh period, clips of the speech fluttered across social feeds. A youth advocacy podcast DM'd for an interview. A nearby liberal arts college offered a stipend to attend their summer writing institute. Each notification sparked excitement, but also caution. Storms follow headlines. Outside, late afternoon sun sharpened everything. The parking lot's white lines, the relief in my chest. Dad waited by the family sedan, keys dangling. Words failed him. Instead, he opened his arms. I stepped into the embrace. Tears dampened my hair while traffic hummed beyond the fence. For once, apologies weren't necessary. Presence spoke louder. Night brought stillness. In my room, I wrote beneath lamplight, "This was never about revenge. It was about finally being seen." Ink soaked the page, steady strokes mapping a new beginning. I set the journal on my nightstand, reached to snap off the lamp. A knock, barely there, interrupted. 3 soft taps. I opened the door a crack. Cressida stood alone in the hallway, makeup washed away, fingers twisting the hem of an oversized sweatshirt. In the quiet house, her breathing sounded loud as rain. I eased the door wider. Hallway light framed Cressida, ponytail damp, sweatshirt sleeves hiding her hands. For a long breath, we just watched each other. After weeks of headlines and hearings, we were 2 kids again outside a bedroom at midnight, unsure who should speak first. Finally, she unfolded her arms and lifted something wrapped in a dish towel. I thought this belonged to you." I recognized the weight before the fabric fell away. The cafeteria bowl, porcelain white, scrubbed spotless. Even the hairline chip on the rim had been polished smooth. She held it like a fragile truth. Words tangled behind my teeth. Instead of stepping aside, I kept one hand on the knob, the other hovering above the rim. Silence stretched, but it wasn't hostile. It was fragile. "I don't expect you to forgive me," she whispered, eyes rimmed red. "I just need you to know I wasn't laughing because you're weak. I was scared you're stronger than any of us." My reply came calm, almost gentle. "Scared people look for help, Cress. They don't set fires." She winced but didn't argue. She lowered the bowl to the carpet between us, straightened, then backed away. At the top of the stairs she paused, lips parted as if another confession might escape, yet turned and vanished into shadow. I carried the bowl inside and placed it on my bookshelf, beside the handkerchief and the Super 8, a trinity of hurt, faith, and witness. I didn't want it shattered. I wanted it present, a reminder that scars can become story. Saturday dawned bright, crisp. Grandma helped me pull boxes from the garage. We uncovered an old yearbook, the margins crowded with jokes about my weight, my quiet, my secondhand shoes. Instead of closing it, I flipped to a blank page near the back and wrote in blue ink, "Let this be the year I write myself in." I signed only my first name, bold. That afternoon, we repotted herbs on the kitchen sill, basil, mint, a stubborn rosemary cutting. Soil crumbled under my nails, the scent earthy and forgiving. Living things, healing things, right where cafeteria echoes once felt permanent. Dad started attending therapy on Tuesdays. He didn't announce it. I noticed when he joined me at the dinner table, phone silenced, asking if I needed the salt. Small, clumsy steps, but steps all the same. School corridors felt different, too. Posters about kindness replaced pep ad flyers. Anonymous reports spiked. Counselors added office hours. A freshman with a stutter thanked me for making hallway breathing easier. I nodded, throat tight, and kept walking tall. Cressida transferred to a magnet program downtown. No dramatic farewell, just absence. An empty seat in French class, a locker already reassigned. I grieved what we'd lost long before her departure. Those popsicle summers, our whispered plans to escape Maple Valley together. But grief is proof something once mattered. I let it sit beside hope. By May, the district approved my proposal for a Saturday writing circle. I borrowed the library annex, dragged folding chairs into a circle, and waited. 6 middle school girls arrived, clutching notebooks with unicorns and band logos. We wrote 6-word stories, then longer ones about secrets, bruises, triumphs. A shy 7th grader named Lila raised her hand. "What do you do when people tell you to stay small?" I thought of cafeteria tiles, Baltimore lights, a porcelain bowl cleaned of its shame. I smiled. "You grow anyway." Lila scribbled that in the margin of her page. Sunlight angled through the dusty window, glinting off seedlings on the sill. Green things inching upward, indifferent to ceilings. And that's what I did. Quietly, stubbornly, like a root-breaking concrete.